Here are 5 flowers you can start from seed right now to have a cut flower garden throughout the summer. Let's go. Hey friends, it's Kendall, your joyful farmer. I'm here on our North Texas farm today. It's the middle of May, and it's still a great time to direct sow some warm season annuals. Today I have 5 flowers that you can direct sow after your last frost has passed. Flowers are awesome for the vegetable garden or just on their own. What's great about these flowers is that they're all heat and drought tolerant, so they'll grow into the heat of the summer, and they require very little water. They're also all cut and come again flowers. They have good length stems for cutting and putting on your table. And you'll want to keep cutting them because the more you cut them, the more blooms they'll produce. The cutting encourages the plants to keep growing and keep producing. First is zinnias. I love zinnias. They are so bright and colorful in the garden. They come in so many different colors. You can buy a pack of seeds that's just one color, or you can buy a pack that has multiple colors to have in your garden. If you want to grow long stems for cutting, just be sure to look for the taller zinnias. The seed packet should say that the plants grow to be 3 to 4 feet tall. Dwarf varieties are also cute, they just have much shorter stems. When I'm direct sowing zinnias, I like to sow 2 to 3 seeds about 6 to 9 inches apart. I like to sow about twice as many seeds as I need plants, just in case of issues with germination or in case I have tiny little creatures coming in to eat the little seedlings out of my garden. When cutting zinnias, it's helpful to make the first few cuts extra deep when you're cutting the flowers from the plants. This really encourages long branching growth and longer stems. It feels a little bit sad to lose a couple of those extra blooms when you do this, but it is so worth it. They will produce so many blooms. The next one is marigold. Most people are familiar with marigold as a companion plant that a lot of people use to repel insects like squash bugs. But did you know that there are also these giant stems of marigold that make incredible cut flowers? When you direct sow them, make sure to cover them with a very thin layer of soil. You don't want any more than 1/4 of an inch of soil over them. Marigold prefers a soil temperature of between 75 and 80 degrees, so some warmer soil to get the best germination rates. I like to sow at least 2 seeds together in clusters about 9 to 12 inches apart, and then later I'll thin to 1 plant per 9 inches by pulling the seedlings out and transplanting them. Or you can just clip them to thin them, just clip the extra plants so that you have 1 plant per 9 inches. They come in yellow, gold, and bright orange. They do have a really strong scent, which is why some insects keep their distance from it, but there are also varieties that have been bred to have no scent, which are really nice for cut flowers if you don't like the scent of marigold. Third is sunflowers. Sunflowers come in all sorts of colors: yellows, reds, oranges, and even whites. There are the classic looking sunflowers, and then there are some that have double petals and some that are the teddy bear varieties, and they're all really cool to look at. When growing sunflowers, you have to decide whether you want to grow single stem cut flowers, which are just one and done. They have 1 bloom that they produce, you cut it, and that plant is done. Or you can grow branching sunflowers that have a main stem, and then they have lots of branching side shoots that produce lots of blooms over a longer period of time. Single stem sunflowers you can plant really close together, as close as 4 inches apart. Branching sunflowers need more space to grow. They need about 18 to 24 inches per plant. If I'm direct sowing single stem sunflowers, I'm sowing a lot of seeds, so I'm only sowing 1 seed per 4 inches as I space them apart. If I'm sowing branching sunflowers, I would put 2 seeds together in a cluster every 18 inches or so, and then later I'll thin to 1 plant per 18 inches. I put the seeds in about 1/2 inch under the soil. I water them once to help them germinate, and then after they germinate, I don't really water them after that. It's also worth noting about sunflowers that there are some varieties that shed pollen, and there are some varieties that are pollenless varieties. Usually the seed packet will give you all that information about a variety, so if you just flip the packet over, it usually says it right there. But no matter which sunflowers you decide to get, sunflowers are a classic cut flower addition to any garden. Fourth is cosmos. Cosmos are very pretty, kind of airy flowers that come in a lot of pinks and whites and oranges. They can have single petals, which are really pretty, but there are also double click cosmos, which are really frilly and just gorgeous to look at. Cosmos like about 12 inches of space to grow and branch, so I would sow a few seeds in a cluster 12 inches apart, cover them lightly with soil, and then later thin them to one plant per 12 inches. It's also good to pinch the growing stem of cosmos to encourage branching because bushier cosmos are going to produce more blooms for you. The vase life on cosmos is typically only 4 to 5 days, but they are so pretty. Fifth is celosia. Celosia is such a cool plant. There are several different shapes that you can grow. There is the spike type that have narrow feather-like blooms. There are also plume type blooms that look like fluffy campfire flames or like a big paintbrush. And there are crested types that look kind of like brains. They come in lots of bright colors and also whites. Celosia seeds are tiny, so I will sow them in clusters of 3 to 4, about 6 inches apart, barely cover them with soil, and then later thin them to one plant per 6 inches. Something else you might consider instead of just direct sowing them is you could also try to start some in some cell trays or soil blocks right now, and then plant them out in a few weeks when they have a few sets of true leaves. I have some currently growing on my porch so that I can keep them watered and keep an eye on them. This works especially well if your pest pressure is already kind of high and you need them to be a little bit larger before planting them out. Also, a couple of extras for you that don't mind the heat of the summer. There is basil. So basil makes a really great filler. Cinnamon basil is one of my absolute favorites to grow. It smells amazing. It smells just like cinnamon. It has these beautiful purple blooms, and the pollinators, the bees especially, just love it and will not leave it alone. If you wait until the basil stems get a little bit tougher and get woodier as the plant matures and starts to flower, it's going to have a better vase life for you, but it looks really nice in an arrangement on your table. And then there's also Gumina. Gumina is also called globe amaranth. It is very heat and drought tolerant. It gets really big and bushy, and it has these beautiful little globe spheres of color. It comes in all sorts of different colors, and it's just a really fun addition to grow, and it does really well through the summer. Luke always has to come find me when I'm doing a video, I'm just saying. Crazy cat. So those are 5 flowers plus a couple of extras that you can still grow from seed right now and enjoy through the summer and even into the fall. Just keep harvesting blooms and they will continue to bloom for you. Now I would love to hear what you all are growing in your garden this year, how it's going for you. I wish you joy on your flower growing journey, and I will see you next time.